My breakfast.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the first of this week's lives. Today, I have the wonderful Joe Bailey with us. It's quite an honour to have Joe. He agreed to come on, and I am so grateful that he's taken his time out of his busy schedule to come with us. Sorry, I just popped that. It's Joe, thank you very much for coming. And rather than going into this, because if I, like I said on the Facebook page earlier on, if I'm to go start listing out your credits, it would probably take the full half hour to list out the amazing career you've had, and have and continue to have. And it's an honor. And there's so many areas that I'd love to touch on today. But before we go any further, would you please introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello, everybody in Ireland. I don't know if you're all in Ireland or not, but it's a delight to be back in Ireland, even if it's virtually. I spent some time there with Sidney Banks and his wife many, many years ago, and it's one of my fondest memories. So it's warms my heart to be speaking to you, Billy.
I'm delighted to have you, Joe.
Yeah. So I don't know how you want to, if you want to start by asking me some questions to take it in a particular direction, but I'm happy to talk about lots of different things.
Well, Joe, just before, some of the people that are joining us, it's a mix of people who've never come across the principles before, who would be local in my own world, but also there's many people that are joining us from different parts who would be aware of the principles. But for those, Joe, that would be unaware of who you are and where you have been and your work has been, could you just give us a kind of a quick snapshot?
Sure.
Just a 1 minute, if you can boil it down to that.
Yeah. So by profession, I'm a licensed psychologist, and so I was always kind of on a spiritual path. I guess my own childhood, I had a lot of fear and anxiety, and so I was always very interested in understanding the mind, and that took me into. Eventually, I was going to be a Catholic priest, but that didn't last too long, and then I went into psychology. So for the last 52 years, I've been a psychologist. And about 10 years into my career, I was feeling burned out, so stressed, kind of, this isn't really working. I'm not really helping people, discouraged. And my dear friend, Dr. Keith Blevins, introduced me to Sidney Banks via some tapes of his. And eventually I got to meet him at the University of Miami for a conference, which is the same day I met my wife, by the way. I met her and Sid Banks the same day. So that was really the turning point in my life, because everything I'd been looking for in psychology and Eastern mysticism and meditation and yoga and on, I was on an endless search, constantly trying to find my own peace of mind, but also a way to help people be guided back to their mental health. And what Sid discovered in his insight and his realization, and really it was his presence, his utter certainty about what he said, and his humor and his humility and his his spirit was so bright that it took over me in a way. It was like it woke me up in a way I'd never been awakened. And so when I went back to my home and to my work, it transformed my career. I was ready to quit my job as a psychologist and go into my father's nursery business. But at that point, I knew I finally had a way to actually help people, and not just help people cope with alcoholism or mental illness or family problems, but to actually transform them by understanding the principles behind how reality is created at a very deep, profound, spiritual and psychological level. So that's taken me on a magic carpet ride that I have. It's just like a fantasy. I was just this little practice in Minneapolis, and Sid, when he would talk to me, he said, well, Joe, you'll write many books and you'll teach in universities and you'll travel all over the world. This is going to transform the world. And at that time, there were like 8 of us that knew about, the psychologists that knew about these principles. And I just thought he was a little wacky or something. Uh, but
Ambitious.
but it all came true, you know. Um, my I've written 6 books, and my books are in 67 countries and 26 languages, and traveled all over the planet. And I've just been so blessed to have a wonderful life. And it's always without any planning, it just happens. So the gift of understanding where our experience comes from and aligning with that deep sense of resilience and spiritual essence, it makes your life just glide. So not that there aren't problems and issues. We're on lockdown here in the United States, just like you are. We can get into that. But going through it, although I've certainly had my moments, my wife and I've had our moments, where, we feel like we have to break out of prison here. But mostly it's just been just an extraordinary deepening of quietness of the mind and reflection, and just enjoying a slower pace of life. Slowing down to the speed of life was one of the books I wrote. And
You beat me to it, Joe.
yeah, and I guess I'm finally realizing how to slow down to the speed of life. After all these years,
It's
it's
only
like,
taken
oh,
52 years.
that's what I was thinking about. Oh, I get it now.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Joe, yeah, that is an absolutely terrific book. You know, you're the living essence of it. Is and to hear you when you speak with the, as you say, the ease to be able to glide through, is not a difficult or a far away thing for anybody. It's what we're always having these conversations about, is pointing us back all the time to the actual essence
Yeah.
of every human being.
Yeah.
But I'd like to just to begin, because you had mentioned it a while ago, that since the arrival of COVID-19 and the restrictions, and how life has really hemmed in a lot of people, it has also unleashed for a lot of people that wave of anxiety, the waves of worry,
Yeah.
fear, etc. And you have written a book called Fear Proof Your Life, and as you were saying to me, it's resurfaced again with the publishers, and they want to bring you back online, and to talk about the book again, because it's very apt in this very particular time.
Yeah.
Would you speak to that, Joe?
Yeah, I wrote the book Fear Proof Your Life. How to Thrive in a World Addicted to Fear was the subtitle.
Just
After
sorry for
not,
putting in everything that Joe talks about, the books and stuff. I'll just put links on this afterwards, underneath this afterwards, so you can find them for yourselves afterwards. Okay, sorry, Joe, for cutting in sort
but
of
that
the.
that book was I wrote in response to the wave of fear that followed 9/11 and the attacks of the terrorists that hit the towers in New York City. And I was just taken by how people were just constantly glued to the television, and when is the next thing going to happen, and all of the security and all of this. And I realized that I know a lot of people in the media, and they said, yeah, this is what, if it bleeds it leads. The media was really pumping up this fear because it got people's attention, and they were glued to their TV sets and their radios and their internet. And so fear, I talk about the fear industrial complex. There's just a lot of ways that people can be very easily manipulated with fear. And so I wanted to give people an inoculation, fear proof their lives, a way to protect them from their own thinking, because we all have fear. Fear is a natural emotion. You're going to, the car pulls out in front of you, your adrenaline shoots up, your eyes dilate, you move into action very quickly to survive. So it's a survival mechanism. But we also have the ability to create fear about things that don't exist, illusions. And what we have the most illusions about is the fear of the future, the unknown, not knowing what's going to happen. What's going to happen with this virus? Will we ever have a normal again? Can I ever travel? Will this conference happen? What's going to happen to my job? Will I ever start my career back? You know, what about my 401k, my retirement fund? You know, all of these worries, these unknowns that people are absorbed in now. It's understandable. It's completely understandable. But I'm talking with people I know who understand the three principles, the psychology that I am based in, what Sydney Banks brought to the world, was like an incredible vaccine for fear. It was like a vaccine for the coronavirus is on the, we're hoping for it soon. But Sid gave us a vaccine to not be at the mercy of our illusionary thinking. He helped us, and you know what, through my work, what I try to help people see is to wake up in the moment to the fact that their experience is coming from their thinking in this moment, not what they're thinking about. And that's the essence of it. When we wake up from the daymare of thought, whether it's fear or regret or worry or anger or resentment or whatever it is, when you wake up in the moment to the fact that where this feeling is coming from is not from the circumstances, but from how I'm using this power of thought right now. So that's the message that I tried to get across in Fear Proof Your Life, and really all of my books, because it's all about the power of the mind, the power of thought to create our moment-to-moment experience, and the power of consciousness to bring that to life in the most incredible, we're just talking about Star Wars, the most incredible special effects possible, the human mind. It's amazing. So I can scare myself to death over something that never existed and will never exist. But what my saving grace is, and what people all have within them, I'm not special. Nobody in this is special. We all have built into us this innate mental health, this innate resilience, this power to have a guiding wisdom and source of insight to take us through the unknown in a way that gives us grace and ease, responsiveness. Like, I work a lot with first responders. I've worked a lot with doctors, first responders, police, you know, all kinds of people who are on the front line. And when they learn these principles that I talk about in all my books, it helps them to be more present and more able to respond in that moment with intelligence, with speed, with compassion, and without the damage that comes from terror and an overworked, fearful system. So that's what the essence of that book is about. And I think my publisher is wanting to re-release it because people are looking for, they're looking for a feeling of security, and they don't know that it's already in them. It's right there under their nose. And all they have to do is realize where their experience is coming from. And that lets us tap into this deep spiritual essence of our being that is connected to everything else, and helps us. For me, going through this, it's helped me see this as an opportunity to create a whole new world. I can see us coming out of this, and a lot of things that we thought were absolutely necessary, we'll now see are completely obsolete. They were just made up stuff that we thought we had to have. There are so many things with the climate and change of the environment and the way we do business, and all of these things are now up for grabs because we've had to step back. The corona has been like a big wake-up call. It's a big, just shut up, listen. Shut up and listen right now.
A cosmic slap.
Time out.
Yeah.
And it's a big time out for all of us. And when we can see that, we can benefit from this stepping back time to on our marriages, on our relationships, on who our friends really are, what's really important, what's my heart yearning for and telling me is my purpose. All these things get clarified in a crisis. It clears the mind. So if we can take that lesson and bring it forward will transform the world here. This to me, this is the beginning of a new era. As the song, "This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius," actually is supposedly the beginning of that age. And I really do see that the biggest, I've had physicians, top physicians in the world tell me that these principles are the biggest discovery in science ever. Because when you understand the principles of the psychological functioning, the mind, it will transform education, government, mental health, addictions, everything. Because we've created all of this in this world, all the mess and all the beauty through the power of the mind. And if we know how to use it as it was designed perfectly, we get aligned with that perfect design, our life flows and we create beauty and cooperation and harmony and unity and ease rather than stress and hostility and war and greed and all of these other things. So anyway, I kind of went off on you there.
No, it's perfect because it's just, it points to exactly what we're talking about, Joe, here. We're pointing to what happens when the noise starts to settle down, the brass band, the thinking or the illusion, whatever metaphor that we choose to. And we have been presented with quite an extraordinary opportunity. And on different lives, I have said, perhaps to me, the biggest nightmare was the fact that I'd have to close my business, I'd have to let off the staff, I would have to do all of those things. And oh my God, I think I'm going to die if I close.
Mm.
And because it was such a struggle at the time. But out of that struggle came this whole experience of these lives and these conversations and bringing into life a whole new experience and a whole new opportunity. And it's what faces all of us. As I see it, keeping on the human element of it right now, or the humanity element of it right now, I see Donald Trump as a gift to humanity right now. Bonkers and all as it may appear to some people, but he becomes the context of how we can go forward. To me, he represents what it means if we take that fearful approach to life again. If we allow the fear to overtake us, if we allow that small-mindedness, that narrow-mindedness, that grasping sense of fear and illusion, if we allow that to take over, we're only simply going to find ourselves repeating and repeating and repeating the same mistakes over and over again, as humanity will do. Or we can grasp what nature has shown us, stick with me, redesign how you live life, live in harmony, live in cohesion with yourself and your society and your fellow man, and the world will heal itself in quick step. It just will do it all by itself. And it's the perfect metaphor for pointing inwards. When we let go of the fear and the grasping and the anxieties and all of that stuff, the natural ability, the natural healing takes care of itself all by itself.
And we're seeing that so
Yeah.
blatantly. I think, I don't know if you saw the international concert that was on Saturday night.
Yeah, it was on in our house, yeah.
Around the virus, and every great musician and performer was on. It was a beautiful event, but what the spirit of it is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The spirit was incredible empathy, incredible appreciation and gratitude for those who are on the front lines with this, risking their lives, showing the unity of the world. That this is an enemy, a wake-up enemy that knows no political party, knows no race, knows no religion, knows no borders, knows no sexual preference. It's like everybody is of equal opportunity to get the virus.
Yes.
And because of that, the only way we can solve it is we all have to come together to work together in harmony. And so if I was a god up there with puppet strings and I was trying to design a perfect way to bring the world together in this age of extreme consumerism and pollution and all the wars and terrorism and on and on and on, let me see, what could I do? How about a virus that strikes them all? They'll have to work together.
They have to slow down. Yeah.
They'll have to they'll have to get into reflection.
Yeah.
They'll have to go back inside to find the solutions to solve a problem that has never existed in this dimension before, in this level before. So I see it, um, I don't know, a lot of my work is working with alcoholics, addicts, people in addiction.
Mm.
And that's kind of an intense example on a psychological individual level of what happens when you lose complete control in the addiction. You just, it's running you rather than you making choices in your decision. And the absolute, the only way out of that is a spiritual awakening, a transformation.
Yeah.
You can't take the ego with you and have full recovery from addiction. We were going to be offering a conference in 2 weeks, an international conference on addiction and the three principles, which of course had to be postponed till September. Hopefully we'll have it virtually. If we don't have it physically, we'll have it virtually. So it's on for September 17th through the 19th. But we're bringing together people from all over the world who are taking these principles into working in the field of addictions, treatment and prevention and school systems and all the ways that we get the message out. But that's been my main focus as a psychologist, has been working in the addiction field as a prevention director for the state of Texas, as a trainer of therapists, just designing treatment centers and that type of thing. And I just see that this understanding of the principles of the mind form the foundation for holistic treatment, for a complete recovery of the essence, not just coping with the addiction, not just managing it, but transforming from out of the ashes of the addiction into a beautiful human being that was always there. So I know we could go a lot of different
No, it is,
directions here,
Joe.
Billy. We could talk forever.
No, you've come on to. It was what I had alluded to in the post was the impact that this understanding has had, and the amount of work and revolutionary thinking you have brought to the area of addictions and the recovery from addictions. And you speak to it so beautifully about what's beyond just the maintenance of addiction. It's as it were the next step back into being a beautiful human being, and it just I'm so moved by that particular story that there's more than just managing addiction, as I see it. And I would really, really, really appreciate you if you would speak to that, Joe, to speak to what you understand as addiction and its transition back to that wholeness that we are.
Well, yeah, I'll do the elevator speech about that real quick. So to me, the real cause of addiction is the loss of our true identity. When we've lost touch with who we really are, our true self, our true essence, our spirit, our soul, we feel an emptiness. We feel a void. We feel an anxiety. We don't feel comfortable in our own skin. And so as human beings, we look to others around us. What are they doing to feel better? Is it get good grades? Is it make a lot of money? Is it take this substance, eat that food, hang out with this gang? Whatever we think will momentarily take us away from that empty void to a feeling of meaning, belonging, joy, relief, any type of removal of pain or a reasonable facsimile of happiness. And then if we think that is what makes us feel good, we're going to do more and more and more of it. And that's the addiction. So the cause is the search for serenity, the search for meaning, the search for wholeness. Carl Jung, the famous psychoanalyst, said to Bill W., the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, in a letter, he said, that alcoholism is on a fundamental level the unconscious desire for wholeness, for spiritual awakening. He said, spiritus et spiritum. This we're looking for the spirit in the spirits of the booze. And that so unconsciously we're all trying to wake up. We're all trying to remember our essence. And so the recovery process, as the 12 steps, was all about the ultimate spiritual awakening is the 12th step through all of the other 11. The goal was the spiritual awakening. Through the spiritual awakening, we were freed of our addiction, of our compulsion to drink. Because the only thing that cures the compulsion is the fullness of the spirit. So we are all looking for the same thing. And that's true whether you're an addict to alcohol or to anything else, or power or consumerism. You know, like you mentioned Donald Trump, power is a big addiction. So when or approval, needing constant approval, narcissism. But when we find and discover that awakening of our essence, it is the antidote to the addiction. And all the therapy, all the treatment we do is focusing people back to that, even though we might first treat their bodies and get them detoxed and good nutrition and sleep and, you know, heal the body first and then educate them about the mind and how it works. And that's an ongoing process for me and for you, for all of us. You know, it's not like you get it and boy, you're good to go forever. It's an evolutionary process that's ongoing and transformational, but never, you can never fully get to the end of it. It's so immense. It just gets better and better and better. So that to me is the foundation for prevention of addiction, and it's the foundation for treatment of addiction, and it's the foundation of ongoing recovery that is evolutionary in its process. So that's the philosophy behind this paradigm shift in the field of addiction and in mental health. Most of mental health is about treating the disease and the symptoms through medication, through coping mechanisms, through ongoing psychoanalysis, or reanalyzing the past, or learning behaviors, that kind of thing. And this points us back to the full package, the built-in, divinely designed system that's already there waiting for us to discover. And so everything comes together, whether it's addiction, mental health, societal ills, crime. You know, we have programs in the UK. Jacqueline Hollows, you may be familiar
Yes.
with Jacqueline's work, has taken these principles into the prison system.
I have David on next week. I have David Saunders coming on to talk next week.
Oh, David. Oh, great.
He's a
Beyond
gorgeous
recovery.
man. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's coming to talk next week.
Yeah. So that's great. Well, thanks for the work you're doing, Billy, and bringing this into your community there in Ireland. Is there anything else?
Yeah, you know, the element of this is to bring so many teachers together, so many practitioners together from all different disciplines, as it were, from all different areas of work. Because like myself and Eileen Watson in last week, and we were talking about this, and funny, we were having a chat afterwards, and I love how his career began as a homeopath and how it evolved into the principles and how the whole thing has come together now, and how the wisdom that moves through him has this real strong echo, you know, of well-being, homeopathy, the natural route, the earth sciences, etc. And it's wonderful, and I love this. And the reason why I bring these people, you, Joe, and everybody together, is the fact that no matter how we approach life, from whatever understanding of the perspective we have of life, we are still guided back to exactly the same place all of the time. And like you say, it becomes the universal principle of it. And to see addiction, which is, I don't imagine there are too many families in the world, Joe, that don't have a level of addiction, experience with addiction, with a relative, at some level. But to simplify it the way you have, Joe, it is very profound. And to understand that addiction ultimately is the behavior and a reflection of the loss of a feeling of well-being,
Mhm.
or the loss of the feeling of wholeness.
Mhm. Yeah.
And to see it so simply, regardless of how complicated the problem may appear, the addiction may appear, the behavior may appear,
Mhm.
that to
Yeah.
understand underneath all of that.
Mhm. And if you don't get to the heart of it, you may quit drinking, but you'll transfer to another addiction, you know, or another and another and another until you connect with your spirit, with your essence of who you are. Um, you know, one of the other areas that you just touched on there, Billy, I don't know if we have time to go into
With all
another
the time you want,
area.
Joe, please, it's
So,
yours.
seeing the implications of this for physical health has been profound for me. I had um, suffered from an illness called Lyme disease. I don't know if they have that in
Yeah,
Ireland,
we're
but
aware of it, yeah.
I had a severe neurological Lyme disease, and and it was really through on my website. I actually have that my whole story. So if anybody is interested in that, they can go to my website and just look up healing from Lyme disease. And it really was a deeper understanding of the principle of thought that cured my Lyme. And it happened in a very out of the three principles community in a way. I was in Asia and Malaysia, and I was very sick and had gone to lots of doctors and was coping with it, was better, but I wasn't well, and I wanted to be well. I was 69 at the time, and I just felt old. Didn't have the energy I once had. I wanted to do my work, write more books, do what I love to do. And so I went and attended this Kung Fu and Qigong conference with my wife, who's very interested in martial arts. And so I met with this Qigong healer from Switzerland, and I told him that I'd like to get a meeting with him to get a treatment for Lyme. And he said, well, let's just do it right now. And we were walking through the streets of Chinatown, busy, horns honking, etc. And he says, so what's the problem? And I said, well, I got Lyme disease last summer. He says, well, stop right there. And I said, what do you mean? He says, don't ever say you have Lyme disease again. Every time you say that, you communicate through the quantum field of your body. Every cell in your body takes in what you think that means, and it recreates the illness. And you have to see the role of thought. I said, oh yeah, I've written several books about that.
Surprise!
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. He looks at me and says, no, you don't. You think you do, but you don't. I said, what do you mean? I don't. This is my whole life. He says, you think you believe, you want to believe, but you don't. Because and I said, well, how do you know that? He said, I can see it in your face. I said, what do you mean? I said, I can see it in your face. You don't believe it. So he talked more and more. And again, and the several times that, no, you don't really believe me. And I was like, all of a sudden I kind of got humbled, and I realized, I think he sees something I don't see here. And at that
Mm.
moment, I could see how my mind was full of fear of dying, full of fear of pain, of losing my mind, my intellect. And I had all of these tons of articles I'd read, conversations with people. All of a sudden, it all was like your life passing before you, and it all just collapsed. And he looked at me and says, now you believe me. And I hadn't said anything. I said, how do you know that? And he says, I can see it in your face. You had a realization, you had an insight. And it was the next day I woke up and all my symptoms were gone completely, and they've never come back. and my head cleared. I had all this energy. I saw my friend who I'd seen the day before. She looked at me in shock and she said, "My God, what happened to you? You look 10 years younger than you did yesterday." And it was a very profound experience. This just happened to me 3 years ago.
Wow.
So I've been involved in the principles for a long time, but boy, I had a big blind spot when it came to dying and being really sick.
Well,
And
it is an area that nobody wants to touch. In that sense, if we can avoid the subject of death,
yeah,
you know,
right.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah. And like I said to you earlier on, Joe, like there is a moment that it's no longer your enemy,
Yeah.
and it's that realization of that.
Hmm. Yeah, it's very profound what you said earlier about that, Billy, with your own
Mm.
experience with the accident. My God,
Mm.
that's amazing.
It is, it tends to, like you say, a healing begins that has nothing to do with us.
Hmm.
The healing begins that has nothing to do with us, and to allow it to be what it is. So that is extraordinary. That is just it's the constant rolling out of these stories of actual lives being impacted and the actual tangible effects of the
And the
release of
and the
such
continual, it's
the,
just
the
continual.
continual
There's
all of
no
the
end
time.
to it. Yeah.
No, it's continuous, and it's the richness of that
Hmm.
it's you don't have to pursue it now.
Yeah.
It unfolds, and as it unfolds, and as I was speaking to a client this morning, it becomes about the experience unfolding
Hmm.
from moment to moment, and it is okay to experience whatever shows up. And like you say, there are times we're going to be challenged, i.e. being locked down by COVID. I found it tough before the weekend. I confess I had 2 days I was thinking to myself, I'm never going to get out of the house. But I knew exactly what was going on. I would understand what was going on, and I just left it be. I know, well, this is restlessness, and I'm thinking about it so much now that it's generated itself.
Hmm.
Let
Yeah.
it go.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Oh, that's so powerful.
Yeah, it is
And
so powerful.
it's that simple. It's in the
Yeah,
moment that you wake up and realize, and you can't make yourself wake up, but when you just realize, if you have the foundation of understanding
yeah.
how it works, then it's fertile ground for those insights to pop in your head, and you realize, oh, I always call it flat forehead therapy, because I'm always going, God, I can't believe I didn't see it again.
Yeah, I know.
Some of your forehead gets really flat after a while because you're
Please note, there's
or bald.
yeah, yeah. There's been a lot of slapping going on down through the years, Joe. I've been done for assaulting myself.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
Joe, I'm aware of the time, and we
yeah.
had I tried to keep it in or around this particular
Okay. Well, it's been
30, 35
delightful.
minutes.
Delightful.
It has been delightful, Joe. Hold on, because I'd like to talk to you just at the other side. I'll just say good luck to
Sure.
everyone. To everyone that joined us, thank you all so much. As I have noticed in these conversations, I've set aside the agendas of these conversations and simply allowing whatever shows up to in the conversation, because the truth is appearing in the moment as we speak it. And today has been just another beautiful example of this incredible wisdom coming into play through Joe and through myself and through everybody that's listening here. Tomorrow evening, it's going to be later. It's going to be 7 p.m. because it's coming from Hawaii. Tomorrow evening, we have Rudy and Jules Kinyard coming live from Hawaii to us here. It'll be on at 7 p.m. Irish time, Dublin time tomorrow evening. So looking forward to having these two lovebirds on. To everybody, thank you all so much for joining us. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow evening. Joe Bailey, thank you so much for your time and for the sharing of your wisdom. Thank you all, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon. Joe, and I'll just, there we go now.